Hi, everybody, and welcome to English for You. I'm Pat.
And I'm Mike.
And so we're in a new year. What do you generally do to celebrate the new year when it turns?
Well, for December 31st, I'm maybe at a party, a get-together, maybe playing some music. I'm definitely not at the Taipei 101. If that's my only option, I would rather stay home and watch it on TV. And for Lunar New Year, I think like most people, I'm with my family. In this case, my Taiwanese in-law family, my wife's family, doing all the things that people do. What about you?
Pretty much the same. I've been to Taipei 101 for the fireworks once, and then once where I wasn't too far off, and then once up Elephant Mountain a bit. And I think that's kind of enough of crowds for me, having seen those a few times.
Sure.
In the UK, it would always be a big house party. Somebody would be throwing a house party, and everybody would be staying up till midnight. You'd sing Auld Lang Syne and generally have a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's pretty normal because it's very cold in most Western countries.
Yeah.
So going outside to watch a concert and fireworks is not too attractive when it's minus 10 or minus 20 degrees.
Yeah, well, today we're going to find out about a particular part of the New Year celebration that is done in Singapore.
Oh.
So let's read through today's article and check out what happens with撈起.
Reading.
Bring in the Lunar New Year with撈起. Many countries around Asia have unique ways of observing Lunar New Year. Some of these are famous, but Singapore has one special way that you may not know about. Each year, cooks across the country prepare yu xiang, a salad made with raw fish. The salad is placed at the center of a dinner table. Diners will gather around to throw the salad up into the air with their chopsticks. This practice is known as撈起. People don't know exactly where yu xiang came from. It's believed that it came from China, though. Legend says that Chinese immigrants brought this dish to Singapore and Malaysia in the 1930s. Back then, it just featured raw fish, ginger, lettuce, spring onion, salt, sugar, and vinegar. Malaysians claim that the original style of the modern yu xiang was created in the 1940s by a restaurant owner from Malaysia. People from Singapore have a different story, though. They say that in the 1960s, 4 creative Singaporean cooks created a colorful style of yu xiang particular to Singapore. This is the yu xiang we see today.
So the article begins and says many countries around Asia have unique ways of observing Lunar New Year. And that's true. There's things that are done here in Taiwan that are a bit different from how things are done in the mainland in China, and that's different from how Japanese people, Vietnamese people, and so on. Everybody's got their own special twist on it, which is why we say they are unique. Now, the word unique can mean completely one of a kind. It's like the only one in the entire world. It's different from everything else. However, we do often use unique to just mean special, different, kind of individual, more for one thing and not quite the same as you'd find somewhere else. So we could say, for example, this type of tall, thin building is unique to Amsterdam, meaning it's only found in that city in the Netherlands.
Oh, okay. We could also probably just use the word special in this case. They have special ways of observing Lunar New Year. And when we're talking about observing here, no, we're not talking about maybe a scientist observing a bird in the trees or, observing a certain animal and what it's doing out in the wild. That is to watch carefully and closely while sort of using your brain. That is to observe, but here we're using it more about rituals and traditions and customs. If you observe a custom or a tradition or a ritual, you're basically following the culture and doing the acceptable or expected things as you do that tradition or ritual or custom. If you observe traditions, you might, for example, give someone a cake with candles on top for their birthday instead of maybe buying them something else or maybe no cake, because the way of observing a person's birthday often involves the cake and the candles. So that's what we're kind of talking about here, following cultural traditions and things like that. For example, the family observed 3 days of mourning after their beloved grandfather died. I guess in their culture and their religion, it's common for people to maybe stay home from work, wear special clothes, stay together in the same place so that they can all be together as they say goodbye to a loved one who has died recently.
So here we're talking about observing Lunar New Year. So the Lunar New Year is, of course, the new year according to the lunar calendar. Now, you'll often find people, especially here in Taiwan, just calling it Chinese New Year. It seems easier that way. But Lunar New Year would mean you include every other country that also sometimes uses the lunar calendar, which follows the phases of the moon rather than the months that are used in the Western calendar.
Because, of course, this holiday is celebrated in Taiwan, China, Hong Kong, places like that. But they also, as Pat mentioned, celebrate it in different ways in Japan, in Vietnam, probably in Cambodia, places like that, and also down there in Singapore. But, of course, the rituals and traditions they observe will be a little bit different from place to place. As the article says, some of these are famous. We're talking about some of the different ways that people observe Lunar New Year. And some of the famous ones might include lighting firecrackers at midnight in Taiwan to scare away Nian, wearing red clothes, red envelopes. These are quite well known. So some of these are famous, but Singapore has one special way that you may not know about. So this tradition might be only found in Singapore.
Well, what is it? Well, let's read on. The article says, each year, cooks across the country prepare yu sheng, a salad made with raw fish. So this one, like a lot of things around the Lunar New Year in Taiwan, it does involve food. There are a lot of traditional foods every year. The dumplings that look a bit like old-style money, the fish that you don't eat all of, the vegetables that are supposed to give you a long life. And this one's involving a salad with raw fish in it, so like the kind of sashimi fish. So let's learn more.
It's a sashimi salad. And where is this salad? It's placed, it says the salad is placed at the center of a dinner table. So right in the middle of the table, and that would be the closest position to all the people seated around the table. Well, that's not even that special. You would often put a big dish like a salad or the steak or the turkey that you're going to cut up in the center of the dinner table just because it's easy for people to reach it there. But this is placed at the center of the table not just to make it easy to reach, but to make it easy to throw.
That's right. This salad isn't necessarily eaten. We see that diners will gather around to throw the salad up into the air with their chopsticks.
They're doing what with what?
They're taking these pieces of raw fish and salad, they're grabbing it in their chopsticks, but rather than putting it in their mouths, they're just throwing it up in the air.
But it's perfectly good seafood. Why are they turning their salad into a food fight?
Well, it's part of the tradition. What we do know is that this will be done by diners. Diners are people eating. We often use it to talk about people in a restaurant. You know, there are 3 diners over at that table. We've got 100 diners right now. But we could use it for anybody who is sitting down and eating a meal.
Absolutely. So the people eating are not eating. They're actually throwing the salad around. I don't know if we should call them diners. We should just call them throwers. But either way, what are people doing? Well, we're going to get to that, but let's find out what they are doing. It says this practice is known as lo hei. That's how you would say this practice, this cultural action that they do, this tradition that they follow. I imagine lo hei is probably in Cantonese, right? Because I think they speak Cantonese in Singapore a bit more than Mandarin, possibly. And it is known as, when something is known as something, they're basically telling you what people call it. It could be known as another thing, like the salad throwing ritual. But if you go to Singapore and you refer to it, people would say, oh, that's called lo hei. That's what it is known as. That is what we call it in the local tongue, in the local language, in the local culture.
So we're going to learn about the exact whys and hows of the fish throwing, but let's actually take a look at the fish dish itself. We read in the article that people don't know exactly where yu sheng came from. And of course the phrase come from, this phrasal verb, it's pretty common in the articles we write because it means originate from. Where did it begin? What was its starting point? Who first came up with the idea? When and where were they inventing this particular type of dish? And in this case, nobody really quite knows.
Where it came from. But the article does take a guess. It says it's believed that it came from China, though. Well, sure, a lot of Singaporean culture came from China and Britain, and also, areas closer, India, Malaysia. But if it's called yu sheng and you do it with your chopsticks and it's something around Lunar New Year, yeah, I'm guessing it's not the British who brought this. It's probably from the Chinese culture. But from that, we also can understand that it's quite different now from what people would do in China. So it's really become more of a Singaporean culture. But yes, if you went back in time, back in history, you might find some connection to this same tradition in China.
And certainly the dish. And in that sentence, we use the language in focus for today's article. It's believed or said or reported that something, something, something. And this is used to say what is commonly believed or thought, or that's what people tell each other. That's what you'll find in news reports or blogs or opinion pieces on this particular tradition. Now, we know it's not 100% certain fact. If we say it's believed that, it's reported that, this doesn't mean it's absolutely accurate, 100% known for sure. Now, when we use this sentence, the it is a dummy pronoun. It doesn't actually stand for anything in particular. You don't directly substitute it. But if you wanted to say the same sentence in a different way, you could say, people believe that. People say that. News agencies report that. Something like that. It, in this case, is just general people. So we could also say, it's believed that a large monster lives in a lake in Scotland. Very popular belief.
I'm not sure that one is true either, or if you'd want to eat it in a salad. Let's get back to the article and get a little bit more into that idea of where this tradition came from and the dish that we use to do the tradition. It says, legend says that Chinese immigrants brought this dish to Singapore and Malaysia in the 1930s. Yeah, these are, of course, some of the people who settled in the area that's now Singapore, and that's why a lot of their language and tradition, culture, things like that were brought with them to Singapore from China. But it's important to notice that first word in that sentence, legend says. This is not history books tell us, or research or facts show. No, legend says. So we're dealing with a legend here. And what is a legend? A legend is an old story that's commonly believed and told, but isn't necessarily true. This isn't fact. This isn't news. This isn't something that was recorded on film at the time. No, it's something that probably goes back hundreds of years, even before sort of normal history, and great-grandfathers would tell this to their grandkids over many, many years, and that's the story we're left with today. But of course, as we know, stories can change over time, and often when they change, they get further and further away from the truth. But the basic idea, yu sheng is a fish dish brought to Singapore from China, that could definitely be true.
Seems reasonable.
But some of the details might be a little different.
Of course. So the dish was brought by Chinese immigrants. An immigrant is somebody who moves to another country to live, to work, to start a family. Not someone who's just coming in for maybe a year to do a job, or certainly not somebody who's traveling. We're talking about people who move there to build new lives.
And back then, if we could jump into our kitchen time machine or restaurant time machine, what would we see in the 1930s with this dish? Well, back then, it just featured raw fish, ginger, lettuce, spring onion, salt, sugar, and vinegar. All right, well, sounds quite similar to many dishes we might eat today. There's a lot of those favorite popular things we find in Chinese cooking: ginger, spring onions, vinegar. Of course, salt and sugar are in many dishes. And here we also have some raw fish and lettuce. Ginger is something I think most of you will be familiar with. It's a root. It's basically like a plant, but the part of the plant that grows underground. It sort of looks like the branch of a tree, almost like it's slightly wooden. But you can peel off the outside, and then you get to a softer part in the middle, and that, of course, has a nice strong smell of ginger. We can cut this up or grind it up or put it in our dishes. Ginger soup with chicken is very popular. You can drink ginger in your tea, and a lot of people say it's very good for your stomach and other parts of your body. I'm sure most of you know exactly what ginger is because it's very easy to find around here.
And you guys probably know what lettuce is as well.
Although that's harder to find sometimes.
Yes, and often a bit more expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lettuce is a leafy vegetable, often used in salads. You'll find slices of it in a hamburger or...
sandwiches,
yeah, sandwiches, you know, that kind of thing. It's usually one or two slices to go in with everything else, or leaves to go in with everything else. It's green, but quite a pale green, almost white in some cases. A whole range of different types of lettuce, ranging from sort of lighter to darker. The example sentence is, there are various types of lettuce you can use in a salad, like iceberg, romaine, and butterhead.
Yeah, various types of salad. The other thing I guess about lettuce is that we don't often cook it, right? It's often, almost always eaten raw.
That's right.
It's not like cabbage. You don't need to cook it to make it softer, to chew more easily. You can cut it up, eat it cold, eat it raw, which is why you find it in many types of salad. And we also might find vinegar in our salad, not as a main ingredient, but as the dressing, because vinegar mixed with oil and some herbs makes for a wonderful salad dressing, or a kind of sauce. If you want, you can pour in your salad, because vinegar is very sour. Vinegar is kind of like lemon or something like that. It has that sour taste that makes your mouth feel like it's becoming very small. And it also would hurt if you got it into your finger, into a cut on your finger, or splashed some in your eyes. This is some kind of acetic acid, I think. It's something like that. It's mild, but it does give it that sour flavor, which people enjoy. When you have something sour along with something kind of creamy or rich, it can really make a wonderful combination. And of course, we use vinegar in all sorts of ways, much as the same way we would use lemon juice to give a sour flavor. We can use vinegar, and we can also use it to make pickles and things like that. So there you go. Put some vinegar along with oil in your dressing, and you've got a simple salad dressing.
So that was the original first dish, this set of simple ingredients. Now let's move on to the kind of modern yusheng that's used in Singapore. We see in the article, Malaysians claim that the original style of the modern yusheng was created in the 1940s by a restaurant owner from Malaysia.
Uh-oh.
So in the 1930s, then Chinese immigrants bring it into Singapore and Malaysia. 10 years later, a Malaysian chef, a cook, creates the modern version, the first modern version, the original modern version.
Okay.
When we talk about original, we mean the first one. It's kind of different, it's unique, and it's special because it is the very first of this particular kind of thing. You could talk about the original movie, original Superman movie would have been the first Superman movie. We've had lots of other Superman movies since, but there's only one original, which was the first one. We could also say, for example, I'm not sure that Martha is a good dancer, but her style is very original. So she was the first person to come up with that style of dance.
Interesting. And people from Singapore have a different story, though. Remember, this is a legend about how this yusheng salad was first made. Some people say it was brought to Singapore from China. Some people said Malaysian chefs invented it. Other people say, no, it wasn't the Chinese who brought it. It wasn't the Malaysian guys. This is how it first started, and what does this version say?
The article says they, people from Singapore, they say that in the 1960s, 4 creative Singaporean cooks created a colourful style of yusheng particular to Singapore. This is the yusheng we see today. So we describe these 4 cooks as creative. If you are creative, you have a lot of imagination. You're great at coming up with new ideas. You could just take a bunch of ingredients and instead of making the same dish that you've made before, you go, aha, I can create something completely different. You see there we've got the word create. The verb is related to the adjective creative, coming up with something new and different that hasn't been done before. After having a meeting, the group came up with some very creative ideas for the project.
All right, and we also had that word particular in the sentence. Here when we use the word particular, we're kind of using it in the same way that we used the word unique earlier in the article. If something is very special, you only find it in one place, you could say it's unique, or you could say it's very particular, especially particular to, or something like that. So if it's kind of thing you only find in one place, or when you hear it or see it or experience it, you make a very quick connection to one person or one place. It's kind of tied to that in a very strong and unique, special kind of way. For example, Mariah Carey has a very particular style of singing. Even if you just hear her songs on the radio without seeing a video or seeing a picture of who's singing, you can probably go, oh, I think that's Mariah Carey because she's singing so high I can't hear the notes.
Yeah,
that's her particular style.
It's almost kind of like a dolphin kind of squeak at some
like
point,
an
isn't
angry
it?
dolphin. Yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, we're going to learn about why. We haven't talked about why this whole idea of throwing the fish in the air takes place yet. We're saving that for the second day of the article. So right now, let's go to our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
So today's question is, are there any special foods you eat at Lunar New Year? What are they?
Interesting question. Well, yes, with my wife's family, with my in-laws, we eat some of the traditional foods. There's that long green vegetable that's kind of hard to cut through with your teeth. I'm not sure what it is.
Is it the mustard greens?
It could be a mustard green. It's like a super big version of a celery stick, and that can be rather hard to eat. But I do enjoy some of the noodles and, of course, the fish that we often have. So some of the dishes are really delicious. Other ones I'm kind of, I think I'll just live a long life, but I won't eat the vegetable. How about you?
Well, when my mother-in-law was still around, we'd have probably more of a variety of home-cooked things. Since she's been gone, we've tended to order out a bit more. That side of the family, they like a hot pot on Chinese New Year's Eve. Okay. Maybe because it's cold. Maybe it's just a good way of eating a whole bunch of different things, but that'll often be in there, and that's not really a traditional New Year's Eve dish compared to some of the other things. And they quite like seafood as well. So if we're ordering food, my father-in-law will sometimes get a big crab and cook that up or something else like that. He does like crab. I think everybody in the family likes a big piece of crab. So that's often a feature when we have Chinese New Year's Eve meals together.
Interesting. And we could say that that kind of dish, that kind of meal is particular to Lunar New Year in Taiwan. Yeah, we eat more seafood, I think, with our Lunar New Year meal than many other parts of China. So that's kind of particular or unique to the way it's done here.
So, well, we've got this particular unusual tradition of throwing raw fish salad around. Why is it done? Join us tomorrow to find out. See you then. Bye for now.
Vocabulary Review.
Unique. Laura loves Neil Gaiman's writing because it has a unique style that's different from anything else she's read. Observe. Taiwanese people observe many holidays throughout the year, including Chinese New Year, Mid-Autumn Festival, and Dragon Boat Festival. Lettuce. Lisa tried to grow lettuce in her garden to use in her salads, but snails ate it all. Original. The new phone lasts 36 hours before it needs a charge. That's 50% longer than the original model. Creative. Mark wants to become an artist, but he isn't very creative, so he can't think of new ideas. Particular. This style of music used to be particular to this part of Africa, but now it's played everywhere.
智慧小补帖。
Lunar New Year. Legend. Immigrant. Ginger. Vinegar.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net